Number 10. Great World Leader. Dr. Doom is known for being one of the most loved of all the most vile villains around. Despite the fact that he's evil and egotistical, fans still seem to enjoy rooting for him, even if they know he's up to no good. And he usually is. Up to no good, I mean. Usually Doom finds his often elaborate plots foiled by the Fantastic Four, or the various other heroes he comes up against. But one time he actually succeeded in ruling the world using the powers of the Purple Man, whom he trapped in a psycho prism. But that wasn't even the most shocking part of this deed. The most shocking part was that he was actually a really good ruler and the world flourished while under his complete control. In fact, everything was going so well that Doom became bored of it and gave up his dream of ruling the world, leaving just as the heroes had managed to break free of his mind control over them and showed up to stop him, only to find there was no one to stop because Doom didn't like the fact that there was no challenge, no one vehemently opposing him. Number 9. Created Life. This was shocking because it kind of went against everything we've known this villain to be. Galactus is more of an unstoppable constant cosmic force than a traditional ill-intentioned supervillain. We always expect him therefore to continue doing what he does best, devouring worlds, as we've known him to do pretty much forever. However, this all changed when the heroes attempted to destroy him once and for all in 2015 in the comics. They put him back in the incubator he'd emerged from during the Big Bang, but something unexpected happened. Instead of being destroyed, he was reborn as Galactus the Lifebringer, and went on a mission to create life instead of destroying it. Number 8. Apocalypse joining Krakoa. I mean, all of the mutant villains joining Krakoa were pretty memorable, but especially Apocalypse. When he decided to stand with the heroes he had opposed for years, in essence becoming one of them for the greater good of mutant kind, it was a moment in the comics where I audibly gasped. Seeing him and so many other villainous mutants like Mr. Sinister emerge from that Krakoan gate, ready to pledge to follow the nation's rules and stand beside mutants who for years they had previously tormented and opposed, was just awe-inspiring. I love it, and yet I don't think any of us originally saw that coming. Villains choosing to stand beside heroes in order to forge a new mutant nation. Of course, given Apocalypse's backstory and the relationship between Krakoa and Arakko, I suppose we should be much less shocked now. Number 7. Adamantium go bye-bye. Bye-bye Adamantium, there you go. Gone. One of the most brutal things to happen to Wolverine in the comics as a result of the mutant villain Magneto, who now honestly is more hero than villain in the comics. However, at the time, Magneto ended up pushing the X-Men to a breaking point when he used his powers as the Master of Magnetism to pull all the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. Miraculously, Wolverine managed to survive the de-adamantizing process, but it cost him his nose and his wits as he became more and more animalistic. De-adamantizing, yeah. That's a word now, friends. I just made it a thing. Eventually, Wolverine would get his adamantium back, but the moment where it was taken was quite brutal. Number 6. Breaks a back. One of the most shocking moments in comic book history comes from the Batman story Nightfall. In issue 497, in a story aptly titled The Broken Bat, Bane finally managed to defeat the undefeatable Caped Crusader. Batman was run down from working overtime when it came to being faced with all of Gotham's villains in one night. Bane took advantage of this and managed to break Batman's back over his knee, meaning that for a time, Batman had to retire while he healed. And at the time, many actually wondered if Batman would ever fully heal and return again. I mean, he just had his back broken. Most people don't, have their backs broken and then are just like, oh yeah, I'm fine, it's great. So this was a very startling plot point in and of itself to happen, and an astonishing victory for Bane, making him one of the most revered Batman villains to this day. Number 5. Helped heal Batman's trauma. During the Three Jokers comic, we learn of a dastardly plot wherein the three Jokers that we know to exist are seeking to create a new Joker to take over for them in tormenting Batman. Or to join them in tormenting Batman? It's a little unclear. Someone more inspired, basically, is what they're looking for. We later learn, however, that this is not the true plot at hand. Instead, it is revealed that this was all a part of one of the three Jokers' master plan to eliminate the other Jokers, so only he will remain, while at the same time helping to heal Batman of his traumatic past by giving him the opportunity to confront, save, and eventually forgive Joe Chill, the man responsible for killing his parents all those years ago. This plot obviously caught many of us off guard and left us flabbergasted by the end of the 3-issue series. As it is revealed, the Joker did all this to help Batman heal so that he could claim the title of causing Batman the most trauma. It's just so twisted. It's perfect, but it's also so twisted. It's something most readers didn't see coming. That's why it's so perfect. Number 4. Monty. In Brian Azzarello's graphic novel Joker, we see just how twisted the Joker appears to his own people, the criminal crew that often work for him. We see him through the average criminal Joe eyes of Johnny Frost. Johnny becomes the Joker's driver and later confidant of sorts. When the Joker gets out of Arkham Asylum, Johnny is the one to pick him up and ends up taking him back to a club, eventually the Grin and Bear It, where Harley Quinn is stripping. Joker is not impressed by this and blames Monty, the club owner, who is also kinda supposed to be his friend, but is definitely terrified of him. As such, he and Harley take Monty to the back and skin him alive before ordering him to go out skinless and dance, paying him for his efforts. The other thing that's really terrible about that story is that Joker borrowed that dollar from Monty that he slapped on his skinless bottom after, so that's also really messed up. Obviously, Monty doesn't make it far during that skinless dance before he dies, but the whole scene in graphic novel really is just quite shocking. The whole thing is shocking. Number 3. Teamed up with Porky Pig. There are a whole series of bizarre but kinda great Looney Tunes and supervillain team-ups at DC because Warner Brothers. But the one I'm focusing on here is the team-up between Lex Luthor and Porky Pig. Porky Pig was really down in his dumps at the beginning of this issue, like deep down in his dumps. The beginning of the issue starts with Porky considering taking his own life, so it's really dark. But everything gets turned around when, while working at Lex's corporation, he is acknowledged by the big boss himself. Porky is lifted up by Lex and as a result teams up with him to help him promote his newest online service, Lexima. Unfortunately, this is also part of Lex's plan to use the naive Porky as a scapegoat later down the line, which Porky only learns after it's too late. Hearing of a Lex team up with Porky Pig is one of the most shocking things I've heard of when it comes to villain stories, but oddly enough, all these stories are also pretty well executed, so it's shocking, but it's also great. Number 2. Eats a baby. What kind of messed up universe did this happen in, you might wonder? Why, none other than Dynamite's The Boys, of course. Although you might not expect that world to be as shocking anymore simply because you're just always expecting to be shocked. There are still those moments that, well, they manage to surprise you, like when we see Homelander eat a baby. Although that wasn't actually Homelander, it was Black Noir posing as Homelander. Black Noir in the comic series is a clone of Homelander who was created to be a failsafe to replace Homelander if he went off the rails. But when Black Noir never gets the order to take out Homelander and replace him, it drives him insane, and so he decides to dress up as Homelander and commit all kinds of unspeakable acts in the hopes that it'll be enough for Vought to give him the kill order that he so desires so he can finally take Homelander's place. Though if you've watched the Amazon Prime show, we still don't know who Black Noir is, so this could be a thing that comes in, could be not. I think the series is gonna go somewhere else personally. Either way, a baby was eaten in the comic series, and that is just still shocking to me, even though it's The Boys and I should expect it. Number 1. Making a supervillain. Injustice was filled with shocking moments, although one of the biggest was the moment that kicked off the whole splitting of this very different reality from the history of the main continuity. In Injustice, the Joker came up with a perfect plan to corrupt one of his foes, and in so doing pretty much mess with his biggest enemy, Batman. This time around, Joker wasn't trying to harm the loved ones of Bruce Wayne, but Kal-El, Clark Kent, Superman. The Joker kidnapped Lois Lane, who we had just learned was pregnant with Superman's child. When Superman rushed to save her, he was faced with Doomsday, who he fought furiously, eventually taking Doomsday up to space in order to defeat him. Alas, it wasn't actually Doomsday that Superman had been fighting. He noticed 2 heartbeats fading and realized Joker had actually tricked him into somehow hallucinating that Lois herself had appeared as Doomsday. Oh no! So Superman killed Lois Lane and his unborn child. It was this shocking act that would lead Superman to murder the Joker and become the supervillain version of himself in this alternate reality story. Number 10. Reveals their true colors. As we work towards building up to the X-Men event 10 of Swords, we learned a little bit more about Apocalypse's history, and the old mutant world as well as his royal family whom he had left behind in Morocco a long time ago. Summoner arrived in Dawn of X and revealed himself to be Apocalypse's grandson, the son of his daughter, War. Summoner claimed that they needed needed to create a gate that would take them back to Arakko, and we learned that Apocalypse's presence in the Excalibur series had kind of been all about that for him. But the most shocking moment didn't come from Apocalypse himself, but from Summoner, who revealed that they were not indeed on the side of the mutants, and that their true plot was to lay a trap for their mutant grandfather and those fellow citizens of the mutant nation of Krakoa. Apocalypse ended up almost dying, while the mutant rockslide Santo Vaccaro actually did lose his life and was even unable to be properly resurrected due to the nature of his death. Number 9. Kills Robin. Anytime a Robin dies, it's pretty traumatic, whether we're talking about Stephanie Brown being killed by Black Mask or Jason Todd being beaten to death and then blown up by the Joker. However, the first time these things happen tend to be the most shocking and most iconic, making Jason Todd's death just that more startling when it happened in Death in the Family. Despite the fact that there was a poll in place for people to vote on whether or not Jason lived, most wrote off the poll as not really mattering and being more of a gimmick than something that would actually affect the story. So everyone was exceedingly shocked when Jason Todd was killed off as a result of people voting for that to be the story's ending, even though, we all knew that was probably gonna be the story's ending, because you probably voted for that, but whatever, I guess. Still shocking. And before we get to this next point, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here and watching this video. If you could, it would help us out a ton if you click that subscribe and click the like on this video. It really does help us out and we do appreciate it. Number 8. Dr. Manhattan's power. Batman Who Laughs is still a relatively new villain in comic history, but he quickly rose in popularity since his introduction. And he continues to not only rise in terms of his ever-expanding fan base, but also in terms of his power level. He was originally allied with Barbatos and then Perpetua. Currently, the Batman Who Laughs proved his mettle in a battle against Apex, Lex, and has the powers of Dr. Manhattan, which he stole. Yeah, he stole those powers. It's nuts. And while he is a villain who, we expect to do all sorts of crazy things like stealing Dr. Manhattan's powers, the Batman Who Laughs still manages to surprise those of us who are already expecting a surprise from him in the comics with his diabolical and most devious plots. You can just never follow him. You're like, he's probably gonna, and then he did something else. Okay then. Number 7. Threw a baby. This was mostly shocking in terms of how twisted it was. For this feat, Joker managed to defeat Gordon's new wife, Sarah, using a baby. Well, a baby and a gun. Joker had kidnapped the babies of Gotham, and Sarah Essen Gordon, who was also a capable cop, had managed to track him and the babies down. She had her gun locked on the Joker but was unable to take him out because he was holding one of the infants. He then disarmed her by throwing the baby at her, which caused her to drop her gun so she could catch that baby, leaving her unarmed and making it easy for Joker to shoot and kill her. Basically, all to get back at Commissioner Gordon, who actually had to hold himself back afterward. The death of Sarah pushed Jim to the point that he was ready to kill the Joker. Pushing Jim's buttons is the sole reason, it seems, why the Joker often tortures the women who are close to him. Number 6. Torturing Barbara Gordon and her mom. When it comes to the shocking atrocities the Joker has committed, paralyzing and assaulting Barbara Gordon is likely very high on that list for most of us. But it's not the only time he's caused Batgirl a ton of grief, though the events of The Killing Joke are some of the most disturbingly memorable. The Joker also once kidnapped both Barbara and her mother and threatened to kill Bab's mom if she didn't marry him. Wow, that's pretty awful. The Joker really seems to have a thing for hurting any of the women belonging to the Gordon family. Number 5. Diner Massacre. When it comes to gruesome acts that supervillains have committed, one of the most shocking and traumatizing to read is the massacre that Dr. Destiny created in Neil Gaiman's Sandman. What's more shocking is it all took place because Dee was bored, and this was his way of staying entertained and having fun. It took place at a 24-hour diner, and it involved the patrons and staff there who found themselves trapped and shackled to Destiny's will as he wielded Dream's Dreamstone. Using that ruby, he made those in the diner get intimate, fight one another, torture each other, eat one another, and eventually brought them all to a twisted and bloody end all their own. By the time Dream arrived, all of his victims were dead, and the diner was covered in body parts and drenched in blood from everything that had happened over the past 24-hour period, where Dr. D kept them trapped there and held them as his manipulated and therefore seemingly willing prisoners. Number 4. Lex for President. One of the most shocking moments for me in the comics was when Lex Luthor was actually elected to become President of the United States. What's more, he actually didn't have a terrible platform? President Luthor got elected after promising to ban fossil fuels, and after highlighting the previous administration's failings when he stepped in to help solve the problem of Gotham following their suffering of an earthquake and resulting chaos in the No Man's Land story arc. Eventually, Batman and Superman managed to expose President Luthor as the villain he truly was, acquiring a recording of him making an arms deal with Darkseid. Yeah. Not a good move there, President Lex. This also wasn't the only time we've seen Luthor be elected as President of the USA. It also happened in Mark Millar's Red Sun story and in the Justice Lord's alternate universe from the Justice League animated series. Number 3 made their sworn enemy kill their own son. One of the most shocking revelations in comics was following a tragic scene where Wolverine was forced to kill his own son, Daken, who he believed posed too great a threat if left to live. He fought against Daken and eventually drowned him in a puddle, killing him. This scene was made even more heartbreaking through Wolverine's inner monologue, where we see Logan imagining what a normal life with his son and wife would have been like had Itsu not been killed and they hadn't all been separated. After Daken is dead and Wolverine cradles his body in his arms, Sabertooth shows up and confesses that Logan killing Daken was all part of his master plan, and that he had actually manipulated both of them into this final fight, knowing Wolverine would kill Daken and then be left haunted by the memory of doing so for the rest of his life. Number 2, pretty much everything Killgrave does. Whether we're talking about the comics or the Jessica Jones live action series, pretty much every villainous deed Killgrave has ever committed has been shocking. He kidnapped and assaulted Jessica Jones back when she was Jewel, and later on sent her to kill other heroes and friends when he sent her back to the Avengers Mansion. In Jessica Jones' series, many moments come to mind as being some of the most shocking, but one that still haunts me is when the Purple Man, played by David Tennant in the show, threatens his father by forcing him to slowly lower his hand into a pulsing blender. Then, of course, there was the moment that Jessica managed to save Hope early on in the show, only to discover that Killgrave had planned for that to happen, and that the reason Hope had fought hard to stay with Killgrave is because he had commanded her to kill her parents when she was reunited with them, which I actually had to pause that show and take a break because I was so shocked. Number 1 had a slice of pie. This one didn't affect the entire world or anything like that, but it did turn an innocent moment into one of the most shockingly sinister ones ever that I've read. In the Umbrella Academy series, we meet Hazel and Cha-Cha, time-traveling assassins. Our introduction to these villains in the quite unorthodox superhero story involves them eating apple pie while in their bear and dog masks respectively. They ask the server at the diner they are eating at what the secret recipe is, and overhearing their compliments, the chef comes out to share that others have traveled from far away and offered him great sums of money to get that secret, but that he joked in the past, "You'd have to chop off my arms and legs to get that secret out of me." The next scene features a bloody Hazel and Cha-Cha, who we later learn have been busy chopping off the chef's limbs. Oh yeah, they also become so distracted by a call from their boss that when the chef actually reveals that canned apples are his secret in that apple pie, they have no idea what he's talking about anymore. Mostly they just really like torturing people. And I guess a good apple pie. Who doesn't like a good apple pie?
Number 10. Joker kills Randall. Okay, in the 2019 Joker movie, written and directed by Todd Phillips, we have Arthur Fleck in his apartment before his big TV gig on the Franklin Murray Show later that night. He's then joined by his former colleagues Randall and Gary. They came in, just to check on the guy. They used to work with him, old friends. Let's do it. They question his face paint right off the bat by asking if he got a new gig or if he was planning on going to the rally. Arthur's like, no, my mom died, so I'm just celebrating. Okay, that's one way of celebrating a death. Randall then asks a few questions pertaining recent crimes. So Arthur, getting a little bit, curious, keeps the conversation going a bit, stalling as he pulls out a knife from behind him, and then out of nowhere stabs and kills Randall. Also, Gary was there, so it made us believe that nothing bad was gonna happen. Because, Arthur liked Gary. Who doesn't like Gary? And also, Gary at this point is out of the loop. So his shock of what just happened with the whole situation is kind of doing the talking for us. He's terrified of what he just saw, asking Arthur, why did he just do that? And his answer was, do you watch the Franklin Murray Show? Yeah, I'm gonna be on it tonight. The scene is chilling because he assures Gary so well that he can go free, even at one point pretending to lunge at him as he walks by, just to be funny. This scene is one of those scenes where you can't help but chuckle in fear, like your jaws drop and you're like, huh, what is happening right now? You were the only one that was ever nice to me, Arthur says, before giving Gary a kiss on the forehead and sending him on his way. How lovely, I think. Number 9, the Lazarus Pit. So to save the world, you must save the life of your greatest enemy. Those are the words from Alfred as he and Batman prepare to toss Joker into the Lazarus Pit in Batman Legends of the Dark Knight issue 145. Using the purest water on Earth, Batman plans on tossing Joker into the Lazarus Pit to question him on the whereabouts of Talia and Ra's al Ghul. Knowing that the waters are capable for turning people sane for a brief amount of time, they plan to get Joker to spill the beans on the location in that moment. What a good plan, let's do it. So, while he's in the water, Alfred pulls out a gun to protect himself, but it's deemed unnecessary as Joker awakens. With his sanity? Excuse me? Yeah, it worked. And after a few confusing minutes of being awake, Joker tells the pair where they may be hiding. What do they do with the Joker? Well, they bring him along, of course.
The three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other.
Yeah, now that song is going to be stuck in your head as well. You're welcome. This moment was shocking because we find Joker reflecting on those who he's killed in the past. The dead, the dead. Sanity, such a burden, as Joker says. You can say that again. It's quite the burden. Number 8. Dinner is served. In Death of the Family, issued October 2012, we find the Joker wearing a mask of his own face? Yeah, that's right, he used his face as a mask to cover his face. So he used a face mask to cover his face, which was the mask. So, the mask wasn't even good either. It was loose and flappy, and it was made of his rotten flesh. Kind of like old bologna. That was a gross image, sorry about that. Last one. So what did he even do in the first place? Well, that's the point. While Batman was restrained to a chair, Joker had threatened to ignite the place up using gasoline. What a sticky situation. Literally, because his face. Okay, that was the last one, I swear. And just then, Alfred enters. Oh, thank God, a familiar face. But he's under the control of flesh-faced Joker. Never mind. The Joker then reveals that in front of all of Batman's allies, who are also at the nightmare dinner table, is their faces. What would you do if you woke up to this? Faint? Me too.
Coming in at number 7, we've got The Walking Dead. What kind of essential reads list would this be without the horror comic that defined the last decade and beyond? Sure, the TV show and resultant spin-offs probably have a bigger audience at this point, but the comics are what got everything started. The Walking Dead is the ultimate modern zombie franchise. There are graphic novels, there are novelizations, there are video games, and they all tell compelling stories of people trying to live during a zombie apocalypse. The terror and mayhem of the initial outbreak are usually glossed over, and The Walking Dead instead opts to look at how human beings attempt to retain some semblance of real life among the chaos. The zombies themselves, while gross, disfigured, and dangerous, aren't the scariest bit by a long shot. Although Tony Moore's art style definitely sells the terror they're supposed to give off. But in the world of The Walking Dead, the zombies are pretty easy to deal with if you're able to stick to a plan. Not all people can though, and a lot of the time the deepest terror comes from how people deal with the post-apocalyptic world. Humans are capable of some truly messed up things, and this is explored in depth. In addition to being wildly popular, The Walking Dead is also long running, so if you're looking for something to really take you on a journey, maybe give it a go. Coming in at number 6, we've got Nameless. Grant Morrison writes some archaic, bleak, and hard to stomach comics, which is exactly why I'm recommending you read Nameless. It's a tale of body horror and humanity's failures. Likened by some to the works of Clive Barker and David Cronenberg, it's a nightmare on a whole other level. In it, a crew of astronauts end up crossing paths with God, like the one and only in this case. And instead of being a benevolent, loving, caring figure, God just decides it's time to crank up that despair. And with despair comes all sorts of technicolor blood and gore. Gigantic maws open up to swallow folks, endless eyes constantly watching. It's a disturbing and lasting tale, one that will confuse and cause pain. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Sandman. Neil Gaiman is a name that most folks watching are probably already familiar with. And if you're not, don't worry, he's got such a wide range of stories to consume, I'm sure you'll come across him somewhere else very soon. The Sandman is one of the most critically acclaimed comics of all time. It is the tale of Dream, the human form of all dreams and tales. He's imprisoned by some occultists by decades and eventually manages to escape. From here, he's able to fly around the universe, ensuring that all of the dreaming business he's been entrusted with is taken care of. There have been all sorts of genre spins throughout the series, but one that sticks out to most folks is the story known as 24 Hours. A lunatic by the name of Dr. Destiny gets a hold of a magical ruby, which he uses to control the minds of everyone in a 24-hour diner. He makes them confess their darkest secrets, and believe me, some of these are dark, and then has them torture each other to death. Teeth, skewers in the eyes, and more. Gaiman likes to work with the idea of stories eventually ending in death, as every life does, and while this disturbs some readers, others appreciate it for what it is. Up to you, I suppose. Coming in at number 4, we've got Preacher, another big name. We've got Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon at the helm, putting together a fascinating and shocking tale of life, death, and often revenge. There are so many disturbing moments throughout the series, like it literally kicks off with a church chock full of people burning to the ground. All the folks inside burn too. Talk about a hot start. From there, it only gets crazier, introducing all sorts of perverted, bloodthirsty, and generally fucked up antagonists at every turn. If you got through an issue of Preacher without meeting someone that made your skin crawl, probably reading the wrong thing. Double check that cover, will ya? Coming in at number 3, we've got Lock and Key. Following the violent murder of their father, a trio of siblings ends up at the ancient family home, the Key House. The place is full of, you guessed it, keys. But these keys are special, magical things. They open up possibilities rather than doors. Some lead to other dimensions, others cause changes in the person using them. And of course, all of this leads to the discovery of a creepy mystery. It's been recently adapted into a series by Netflix, but that has some mixed reviews. So if you want the real experience, pick up the first volume and get to page turning. Coming in at number 2, we've got Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is a legendary creature with all sorts of different adaptations. Wes Craven did a Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing was brought back recently as a series, and of course, Alan Moore, comic genius, did his version of it. To most, this is the definitive version of Swamp Thing, a hulking, decomposing mass of plant and man. Swamp Thing constantly wrestles with his own humanity, or what's left of it anyways. And while there are plenty of monsters and fights and rotten pieces of flesh, the scariest moments don't come from the bombastic. They come from the realm of the psychological. You have to read it to get it. And finally, at number 1, we've got Nailbiter. Let me break this one down for you real quick. Nailbiter is a story set in Buckaroo, Oregon. The classic small town, perfect for a serial killer to run rampant. Or serial killers, in this case. 16 of the most prolific killers known to man were born in Buckaroo, and Nailbiter takes a look at the newest. Edward Warren, also known as Nailbiter, loves to look out for people with a tendency to bite their nails. Then he kidnaps them, waits for the nails to grow back, and chews their fingers until he reaches bone. Yum. This is a story about a lunatic who just keeps getting away with crimes. No ghosts, ghouls, goblins, or eldritch monstrosities. Maybe that's what makes it so scary.
Number 10, Mystique betrays Sabertooth. So while Mystique and Sabertooth were on a mission to assassinate a scientist in East Berlin, Sabertooth thought he was completing the mission with Lenny Zauber. Lenny had already been dead by this point, so Mystique decided to sneak in there and take their place. Classic Mystique. So Mystique, aka not Lenny, finished the mission, and the pair laid low for a while in a safe location. They eventually became lovers. Ah, how cute. Nothing gets you in the mood better than some assassinations. They ended up becoming lovers, but Mystique faked her own death to get out of there. I feel like faking your own death could work in a lot of situations. I mean, if you sleep in, running late from work, boom, just say you died, it's easy. So yeah, during this time with Sabertooth, they ended up giving birth to none other than Graydon Creed. You would think being the son of 2 mutants, you would be riddled with powers. False. He had no powers, so Mystique decided to, just abandon him. Naturally, Graydon grew up with some built-up anger towards his parents. That ends up turning into hatred for all of mutants. So, down the line, once he became a successful politician and leader of the Friends of Humanity organization, Graydon is assassinated by, you guessed it, Mystique. A time-traveling version of her, that is, in order to fix some time paradox.
Number 9, Mystique betrays Rogue. I mean, there are a lot of times that Mystique has betrayed her adopted daughter, although Mystique does seemingly betray Rogue, mostly in an attempt to protect her at least. One of the worst betrayals we've seen where Rogue ultimately decided to denounce Mystique as her adoptive mother was when Mystique, using the precognitive knowledge of Destiny's diaries, attempted to save Rogue's life. Sounds weird to consider this a betrayal, but hear me out. This was during Messiah Complex. Rogue had fallen into a coma, overwhelmed by all the consciousness and psyches in her mind, which she had absorbed using her powers. Mystique knew that Rogue would surely die if she didn't take action, but Destiny had prophesied a cure for their daughter. The touch of the baby mutant Messiah, who we now know as Hope Summers, would save her. Mystique stole the child and used it to awaken Rogue, but Rogue was pissed. Why? Because in using the child to awaken Rogue, Mystique had endangered its life, as Rogue's powers could have potentially killed the baby. Now, they didn't, but she was still pretty livid, calling Mystique selfish and touching her with her own hands out of anger at her adoptive mother to punish her. She drained Mystique's powers and her consciousness and nearly killed Mystique in the process. Side note, don't piss off Rogue.
Number 8, Mystique betrays Wolverine. We go back, way back. I'm talking to Wolverine Volume 3, Issue 65, that is. So it's 1921 Kansas City. Mystique and Logan are hiding from the police, and while they try and kill everybody who is part of Mystique's gang, but until this point they all thought that Mystique had sold them out. That's important. It was later revealed that Logan had actually spilled the beans the whole time, so Mystique ended up still getting away because, well, she's Mystique. Cut to Logan sitting on a train alone, or so he thought. Then he looks over and sees that Mystique is there with him. Sorry, what? She then reveals that she knew everything all along, including the fact that it was Logan who had tipped off the police. She then kicks Logan off the train. Bam, surprise, now you're walking. And she even praises Logan, saying, "Believe it or not, I'm not even angry with you. You made a smart play selling us out. I can't fault you for that." Followed by a let's bygones be bygones talk. What do you say? And then she decides just to hoof him off the train in the snow. Ouch. That's just cold. Literally cool.
Number 7, Doomsday. While Doomsday and the Hulk bear some differences, a big one being that Doomsday is traditionally a villain, whereas Hulk is usually more recognized as a hero, they also bear similarities too. Both were created through experimentation, one an accident, one on purpose. Both are super strong, monster-like creatures, and they even bear a resemblance to one another. Doomsday is gray, which actually was the color Stan Lee originally wanted for the Hulk's appearance. However, when problems surrounding this desire arose, they turned the Hulk green instead. When Doomsday first fully appeared in Superman the Man of Steel issue 18, he was seen wearing a containment suit. And while Doomsday might be gray, his containment suit was very green, which all added to his Hulk-like appearance, in my opinion. Of course, the suit was likely added to create intrigue as to who or what was lurking within it. But still, it's interesting that DC decided to pick the color green as opposed to any other color. There's a lot of other colors out there, folks. Number 6, Doomed. If you thought Doomsday was a Hulk ripoff and you're feeling me there, you are going to love this one. Doomed was created when Metropolis University student Riser was infected with the Doomsday virus, similar to other versions of the virus we've seen pop up in the comics, but not quite as deadly as the one from the Dark Multiverse. Instead of killing Riser, it transformed him into a monster-like creature known as Doomed. He had similar powers to Doomsday, but has never really been considered a villain, more of a hero. Immediately after his transformation, Doom was forced to flee the authorities who saw him as a monster due to the accidents that he caused, despite the fact that Doomed attempted to actually save those that he had endangered, and he didn't intend to create any of that chaos. Riser would transition between his Doomsday form and human form and would end up being affiliated with the Teen Titans for a time. Number 5, Loose Cannon. This Hulk ripoff even has his strength levels similarly tied to his emotions. The angrier he gets, the bigger and stronger he gets. Loose Cannon was created by Jeff Loeb and Lee Moder, and is basically a big blue version of Hulk who was originally the human Eddie Walker. Walker regained the use of his legs, which had been disabled in a car accident when his metahuman gene was activated, turning him into the hero known as Loose Cannon, who was later redesigned during New 52 to be a Teen Titans villain instead. Eddie's skin has also been known to change color with his mood as well, and while he does appear to be similar to the Hulk in terms of powers, transformation, and abilities, he also bears a striking resemblance to Hank McCoy, the bouncing blue beast of Marvel's X-Men, especially his New Earth design. Number 4, Damage. Ever wondered what would happen if Captain America's exposure to the super soldier serum actually turned him into a monster? Well, wonder no more. DC has the answer to your question with one of their very own Hulk ripoffs. Damage is Ethan Avery, a youngster who grew up admiring superheroes and wanting to be just like them. At one point during his time serving in the military, he was offered an opportunity to become just that, and of course, jumped at it. He volunteered for the Damage program, a program that used experimental procedures in an attempt to create superheroes. Ethan passed all the necessary tests after applying and was given the Damage serum, which transformed him for 1 hour each day into a super strong, monster-like creature who bears a striking resemblance to the Hulk, down to his tattered pants. While in this form, Ethan would have very little control and basically adopt another rage-fueled berserker persona, also similar to the Hulk. Number 3, Behemoth. Behemoth comes to us from DC's Earth 8. He was basically designed to be a mock version of the Hulk. He's pretty much parody Hulk, where instead of Hulk being a big, ripped, muscly giant, he's a big, blue, oversized man baby. Literally. He even wears a diaper. Behemoth was created by Grant Morrison, who tweaked the world of Earth 8 to make it basically be DC's alternate universe version of Marvel 616. On Earth 8, Behemoth is part of a team known as the Retaliators. I wonder what famous Marvel team that name could be referring to. The Retaliators. Number 2. Monster. Monster was introduced during Superman/Batman. He was basically a big green powerful monster who was possessed by Kryptonite Man and created by Joker and Mr. Mxyzptlk, who had seemingly teamed up to take down both of their sworn enemies, Batman and Superman. Seemingly. Monster wasn't the only one they created, however. No. He was part of a team known as the Maximums, a parallel to Marvel's Ultimate Supers originating from Earth 1610. All you have to do is look at Monster though to really see how much of a ripoff of the original Hulk he really is. Number 1. Smash. Smash was basically Rob Liefeld's attempt at salvaging work he'd already completed but was unable to use. Liefeld had been working with Marvel previously on Captain America stuff, but when Liefeld kept apparently missing deadlines and sales ended up being not where Marvel had hoped, they let him go. The book was moved over to Wildstorm, and Liefeld's direction for the plot was pretty much fully abandoned, but he still found a way to make use of the work that he had already done, creating a new character for the comic Fighting American with Awesome Comics, which was started by Liefeld. Smash, which looked a lot like another very familiar Marvel powerhouse, but purple instead of green, and wearing a chain around his neck. That's about it.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Tales from the Crypt. And why not start with a bona fide classic? Sure, most folks know it from the TV show now, but it all originated with the comic. Throughout the 50s, EC Comics put out all sorts of horror anthology comics with tales about as varied as you'd expect. Credited along other horror classics like Eerie and Creepy with bringing comics back from the brink after World War II, Tales from the Crypt effectively used horror to captivate audiences all over the place. Most folks associate Tales with the one and only Crypt Keeper, especially those who were introduced to the series through the TV show. But in the original run of comics, there were 3 figures introducing us to macabre tales, each with their own unique personality and distaste for the other hosts. So many classic horror stories are packed into Tales from the Crypt, and that's not even taking into account how forward-thinking they were. Like all good horror, Tales takes shots at the establishment and the status quo, questioning why things are the way they are. While maybe a little outdated, this is a classic comic that set the standard for things to come. Coming in at number 9, we've got Fatale. Now for something a little newer. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Fatale. This is a wild postmodern crossover involving all sorts of awesome horror stuff. First, we've got the noir elements, seedy criminal underbelly, lots of shadows, and a femme fatale protagonist. Then we've got some Lovecraftian intrigue folded in. And of course, it's all done up in a 50s style, adding to the timeless feel of it all. We follow Jo, a seemingly immortal woman who's been chased for decades by a Lovecraftian cult. Jo has the power to make men fall irreversibly in love with her, whether or not she wants that to happen. Usually the men that fall for this femme fatale also put their lives on the line for her and end up dying in terrifying and grotesque ways. It's the classic noir story told from a different angle. Femme fatale has man fall for her, feels bad, and then witnesses his demise. The eldritch themes are strong within the world of Fatale, and some of these scares are downright disturbing. The tone and feel of it is something special for sure. Check it out if you like throwbacks, film noir, or horror. It's sure to impress on all counts. Coming in at number 8, we've got Gideon Falls. Part Twin Peaks, part word of mouth creepypasta, Gideon Falls feels like something totally new and crazy. Put together by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino, this is a horror story driven by the exploration of evil rather than gore and gristle. We meet Norton Sinclair, an amalgam of the worst parts of Lemire and Sorrentino, as he explores the urban legend of the Black Barn. This structure pops up throughout time and space in order to foretell death and destruction, madness and mayhem. Of course, that's only the first story. This continuing comic will keep going up until December with new information, but then it shall wrap up. There's plenty of catching up to do though, so get on it quick. Just be prepared to feel the terror flow through you.
Number 7, White Knight. This is a fun one. Imagine if Joker was the good guy and Batman was the bad. Okay, well in Batman White Knight #1, released in December 2017, we get to see this. Written by Sean Murphy, this story finds Joker as the hero. And this Batman is reckless. He's destroying the city just to get close to him. Once Batman gets his hands on Joker, the Joker tricks Batman into drugging him so that he can be sane again, becoming Jack Napier. So the Joker at this point actually outsmarts Batman. Ooh! He uses legal knowledge to convince Jim Gordon to arrest him for all this crazy stuff that he's doing just to get to him. This same Joker was still after Batman, so he used the Mad Hatter's control device to do a lot of his dirty work. Nightwing and Batgirl even joined in on the cause to bring in the Caped Crusader. This is a great version of Joker to see. Reviews for the story have been mainly positive. What did you guys think? Let us know below. Number 6. Martha Wayne. Come again? Alternate universes are fun, Flashpoint specifically. So in this universe, Flash's mom is still alive, right? But other weird paths have happened in this universe to get to that point. So things are a little different in big ways. So in this universe, Bruce Wayne is the one who got shot, not his parents. Oh nice. So Thomas Wayne ends up becoming the Caped Crusader using guns and a splash of more violence, while Martha Wayne takes on the mantle of the Joker. That's right, she immediately goes nuts after the death of her son and starts slashing up her own face, taking on the look of the Joker almost immediately. She knows Thomas Wayne, now Batman, would never kill her, so she uses that against him in the storyline. We actually caught a glimpse of this in the opening credits of Batman vs Superman released in 2016. Didn't anybody else find it odd that Lauren Cohen and Jeffrey Dean Morgan played Bruce Wayne's parents for such a small amount of screen time? They were pretty big actors and were even bigger at the time. Well, it was revealed that a Flashpoint movie has since then been in the works, so hopefully we get to see Zack Snyder's dream of casting Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Batman, and even better, hopefully we see Lauren Cohen taking on the role of Joker. She would probably get an easy Oscar nomination for it. I'll call it now. Check that date. I'm calling it. Number 5. Lois Lane Lives. Speaking of Batman vs Superman, whenever the two cross paths, it's usually a pretty epic time. So after Lois was poisoned by the Joker in Action 17, released in 1996, 2 years after I was born, so old, Superman is faced with the toughest choice. Joker had made it so in order to cure Lois from the poison, Superman must kill the clown prince of comedy himself. Batman reminds Superman of the tremendous guilt that he felt after he killed the Phantom Zone villain in the Pocket Universe. So we got ourselves a situation. So Superman makes the hard choice but to let Lois Lane die. The Joker laughing all the while. So after her supposed death, she lets out a large gasp of air. The Joker starts laughing. So Superman and Lois now both have to deal with the fact that Superman would rather let the love of his life be killed rather than kill the Joker. See, the Joker's always strapped. He's always got a plan. It's tough times, man. Sometimes you just gotta take the L. Number 4. The Killing Joke. Batman the Killing Joke, released in 2016, also made into a feature-length animated film, is one of my favorite storylines. Let me explain why. So, after the Joker had escaped Arkham Asylum, his first stop was to hit up Commissioner Gordon's house, obviously. Barbara unfortunately had to answer the door. God. So Joker fires a bullet that ended up paralyzing her below the waist. And after taking some pretty messed up photos of Barbara, Joker kidnaps Commissioner Gordon and forces him to go on a ride in this messed up amusement park that he's brought him to. And the ride isn't that much fun because as the ride goes on, Gordon is forced to see these horrible photos of his daughter taken from that night. What an absolute nightmare. I've been on roller coasters, but none have been that scary, I don't think. Number 3. Joker kills the audience. Batman The Dark Knight Returns Part 2. So this moment mirrors what happened in the finale of the Joker movie, kinda. So Joker is invited on a talk show to get some insight behind his madness. Always a great idea. Let's get more of those guests on there. After being asked by the host why he's killed people, Joker explains how he's going to kill everybody in this room. And cue the panic laughs. Joker begins to explain that he thinks he's Batman's psychotic obsession. But then after asking about the lovely mugs that guests would get on these talk shows, the Joker goes, oh nice, breaks the mug and then stabs Dr. Bartholomew in the neck, who was aiding Joker for this interview. So it turns out the Joker was not that cured at all. And if that wasn't bad enough, he then murdered the entire audience with poisonous gas. Just a nice finishing touch. A+. Number 2. Killing Rachel. My favorite portrayal of the Joker is still Heath Ledger's. Now, I love the other versions, but after seeing this movie when I was younger and seeing Heath's performance for the first time, it was just surreal. One of the most shocking moments from that movie was when he made Batman choose between saving Harvey Dent or Rachel. And I, of course, had to include this in our list. This is a great moment. The build up to the scene and the character choices that Heath made to express the insanity of the Joker, so good. The scene, of course, doesn't end on a happy note. As we all remember, Rachel gets blown away to smithereens and Harvey starts to mentally decline after her loss, thus becoming the notorious Two-Face. And finally, number 1, the Joker breaks his own spine. Excuse me? Ever lean back in your chair at work and you kind of give it a bit too much? Ooh, gives you quite a oh my god feeling. It's not pleasant. Well, in the 1986 The Dark Knight Returns, we find Joker and Batman hashing it out. So while Batman is kicking his ass, he explains to him how many people he's let die simply by just not killing the Joker. I never kept count of them, says the Joker, and Batman responds simply with, I did. So Joker begins to stab Batman, and Batman twists Joker's neck. He's still alive enough to taunt Batman, still, somehow. Come on, finish me, he begs. Batman doesn't budge. So Joker decides, you know what, he's done enough. So the Joker decides to twist his own neck so hard, making it so that he himself has the final blow, thus now making Batman
Number 10, Dr. Phosphorus's fate. We still aren't sure if Dr. Phosphorus will pull through, but we are sure of how passionate Astrid Arkham is about ensuring his survival. She is the Arkham Knight and the leader of the Arkham Knights, appropriately, in Gotham, made up of the criminals and the criminally insane former patients of Arkham Asylum. I actually really enjoy the idea of this surprising, heroic, and loyal team who would follow Astrid to their deaths. In fact, in future state, the next Batman issue number 3, it looks like Dr. Phosphorus may have just done that, dying, having suffered for so long and simply wanting to give in and just rest. But Astrid won't let him, and as heartless as that sounds, it actually comes across as fervently caring. Phosphorus gets shot down in their latest battle, and now it's up to the medical team at their home base to save his life. It's kind of hard because I'm like, for Phosphorus, I feel like him passing away wouldn't be bad, but I feel like for Astrid, I want him to pull through. I don't know. Number 9, Superman punches the sun. I don't know if this one was like super shocking in terms of reveals or anything like that, but it was shocking in a character development giggle-inducing sense, which I think is a form of shock. Happy shock? In future state Superman / Wonder Woman issue number 2, we get a little trading spots moment between Wonder Woman and Superman. While Superman battles the sun god, not really believing in gods himself, he ends up deciding to just go with it a little more, rather than trying to explain away what's going on or dismiss it. In fact, he actually embraces it so much, he faces it head on, punching the sun god, and thereby defeating him. Much to Wonder Woman's surprise, and much to my enjoyment, and hopefully your enjoyment too. Number 8, Slam Bradley's Nightclub. Not only was it surprising to see Slam Bradley running a nightclub, but it was also equally surprising a few pages later when a shootout happened there. Oh no! Although, I mean, we are in Gotham, and this is Gotham City Sirens that we're talking about, so maybe I shouldn't be too surprised. However, I was shocked and crestfallen to see Bradley get shot and likely killed again, and to see Catwoman herself get shot and wounded again. Also, how many times has Selena taken a bullet now in the comics? Jeez, I feel like it's happened enough that it could have its own list. Poor Catwoman. Someone count the bullets in the comments.
Number 7, Mystique betrays the X-Men. This time around, Mystique betrayed the X-Men in a very roundabout way, and it's unclear whether this was an intentional betrayal or simply something that happened because Mystique was possibly in love with one of her rivals. In 2013's Uncanny X-Men issue 24, it was revealed that Mystique had actually married none other than Charles Xavier. We found out following Charles' death in Avengers vs. X-Men, when She-Hulk came, presumably as his lawyer, to read out his last will and testament, and handle the affairs of his estate. Of course, the X-Men were shocked to hear Xavier and Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique, had married in secret. We also knew at this point that Raven had bore Xavier a child, but even more shocking, Xavier left his school to her. In effect, she kind of got Xavier to betray his own X-Men, leaving the school to her instead of them. Later on, this marriage and this draft of the will would be seemingly erased from existence when Matthew Malloy, revealed to be secretly the most powerful mutant alive, had to be wiped from the timeline.
Number 6. Mystique betrays Mr. Sinister. So while Mystique was with the Marauders during the hunt for Hope Summers, Hope was the first New Mutant born since M-Day, so it was kind of a big deal. Mystique was working with Gambit, who at the time had plenty of reasons to go after Mr. Sinister. Mystique ended up pushing Mr. Sinister against Rogue, and with Rogue's killing touch, did just the trick with skin-to-skin contact. Rogue at this point was even tired of Mystique's manipulations. She even tried to kill Mystique herself with her touch, but Rogue ended up discovering that this baby actually had given Rogue her full powers back, eliminating the Strain 88 virus. In doing so, she absorbed the memories of, you guessed it, Mystique. And once that happened, she told Gambit that she just needed to be left alone, she needs a minute, and she walked away.
Mystique betrays Wolverine. Again. There have been a few times this has happened as well, as you've already seen in this list. However, I'd like to focus on the one where Mystique helped send Wolverine to hell, working with the Red Right Hand, an organization who literally was bound together by the hate they all shared for Wolverine. That's some bonding right there. Mystique took the form of Melita Garner, one of Wolverine's lovers. Under this guise, she was able to lure him into the center of a ritualistic circle, created for the sole purpose of separating the target's soul from their body. Logan's soul was ripped asunder and sent to hell, while his body stayed on Earth and became possessed by a demon and wreaked all kinds of havoc. Mystique would later on attempt to make things right with Wolverine, warning him of the Red Right Hand after helping to bring him back from hell, but he wasn't having any of it and refused to trust, forgive, or even listen to Mystique.
Number 4. Mystique betrays Deadpool. So in Deadpool issue 27, Mystique and the Merc with the mouth were actually married, believe it or not. We start off with Deadpool asking her to sign divorce papers. And I know what you're thinking, wait, the two of them didn't work out? Get out of town. Not really. In fact, Mystique was really just cuddling up to Wade Wilson, simply just to get closer to the Weapon X program. Not a bad move. She was just using him as a way in, so that she could eventually steal the files. Not cool. I mean, Deadpool actually got married a handful of times, as we all know, so don't worry. I don't think this broke his heart too much.
Number 3. Mystique betrays Rogue and Gambit. While Mystique and Gambit have worked together during their time with Mr. Sinister and both love and care about Rogue, Mystique hasn't always approved of her daughter's choice to be with him. In fact, at one point she even tried to break up this epic longtime couple. Disguising herself as the mutant student, Fox, she attempted to prove that Gambit was not right for her daughter by trying to seduce him in the showers. Gambit refused her advances, insisting he loved Rogue. The two had been experiencing some strain due to the lack of physical intimacy in their relationship and were going through sort of psychic couples counseling sessions with Emma Frost. And you could tell that Gambit, while steadfast in his love for Rogue, was definitely physically tempted. Turns the shower to cold.
Number 2. Mystique betrays the X-Force. So after Mystique had joined the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, they had this plan. The plan was to expose and destroy X-Force, and while they were at it, claim Genesis as their own version of Apocalypse. So she disguised herself as Psylocke so she could properly seduce Phantom X. Cool. But she was exposed and it ended up causing this big fight. Not cool. Mystique ended up telling Phantom X about the toxin she used to poison him, and she said that somebody was after Psylocke, similarly how she's after him. So he left, he got out of there. So after her and the rest of the Brotherhood watched Ultimaton explode and kill the X-Force, she actually had her own secret plan to use Evan to kill the Shadow King, thus claiming the leadership of the Brotherhood. But what she didn't know was that X-Force was still bumping and tricked her into leaving the base. Nice, a lot of trickery going on in this one. Check out Uncanny X-Force issue 31 and see for yourself. You don't want to miss it.
Number 1. Mystique betrays Nightcrawler. We know that Mystique was Nightcrawler's mother and that while married, she had an affair with his demonic father, Azazel, in order to conceive him. When he was born, however, the strain of giving birth caused her to lose control of her shape-shifting skills, revealing to the humans that attended her true colors, so to speak. Learning that their lady was a mutant, an angry mob chased after her and her baby, who was also born looking like a blue little demon. During her escape, she chucked her newly born baby over a waterfall so it would be easier for her to disguise herself and get away. Fortunately, the baby that would become Kurt Wagner teleported himself to safety. Yeah, the betrayal in this mother-son relationship started real early. Number 10. Pit. This one is a little more loosely connected in terms of story, but the look and connection of Pit's creator to Hulk is what causes comic fans to draw parallels. Pit was originally created by Dale Keown for Image Comics. He first appeared in his own self-titled series Pit in the 90s, and wow, he definitely has a 90s look. Check out that sweet studded leather vest with plaid-inspired lining and all of those chains. You can never wear too many chains in the 90s. Dale Keown, Pit's creator, was well known for his work as a penciler on the Incredible Hulk series during Peter David's run, and it's usually this connection and Pit's ginormous, muscle-bound appearance that make people think of the Hulk when they see him. Pit himself was a human-alien hybrid creature from outer space who was created in a lab aboard a spaceship. It's like a cosmic Hulk. Number 9. Rampage. Not just taking inspiration from the Hulk, but likely taking inspiration from his cousin, Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, as well. Rampage was originally
originally known simply as Kitty Faulkner. Dr. Kitty Faulkner, that is. Kitty was a brilliant scientist working for Star Labs. An accident wherein Kitty was exposed to massive solar radiation during a demonstration gone wrong caused her to be transformed, however, into the orange giantess known as Rampage, who also sported a red mohawk. A fight with Superman where he absorbed excess radiation from her giantess Rampage form caused her to return once more to her human appearance as Dr. Faulkner. There would be other times, however, that Kitty would return to her Rampage form. Like She-Hulk, she also appears to keep her wits while in her hulkish appearance. Number 8. Omac. Omac stands for One Machine Attack Construct, and was created by Brother Eye to be used in their war against those who would oppress them. Originally in New 52, Omac was the human known as Kevin Coe. Kevin Coe was an employee of Project Cadmus who would be taken over and in essence assimilated into the being referred to as Omac, a servant and warrior of Brother Eye. Brother Eye can activate Omac whenever they like, transforming Kevin into the biotech being possessing super strength and durability known as Omac. While in this form, originally Brother Eye would be in complete control of Omac. However, when Brother Eye was killed, they gave Kevin both his personality and control back as one of their last actions. The consequence of this was that Kevin would no longer be able to revert to his human form, becoming only Omac. Number 7. Yara Flur leaves the Justice League. This was a shocking one for me. Although we didn't see it specifically happen in real time, it was alluded to in the Superman/Wonder Woman comic that at the time that comic takes place, Yara is no longer part of the League. I love her reasoning behind operating the way that she does too and not being a part of the League. She has a really powerful speech where she kind of just talks about how she doesn't want to be a part of the system because it never changes, which is apparently how she always is able to anticipate that the Amazon rainforest will catch fire, because it kind of always does. There are always people ready to take advantage and find new ways to game the system. So she doesn't want to be any part of the system. She's like, people wouldn't like worry about having to deal with me if I was part of the League, because I'd be like part of them in a way. But I love it. Number 6. Bat in Peril. I thought the cliffhanger ending in the next Batman issue number 2 was a doozy personally, and then issue number 3 came along. Oh my goodness. I mean, I know this is Batman, and although he's a new Batman, he can likely get out of almost any predicament, because that's just what Batman is known for being good at, no matter who is underneath that cowl. I'm sure Jace can handle himself, but also, can he? I'm concerned. At the end of issue 2, we saw Jace as Batman confronted by a bunch of peacekeepers, forced to surrender. In issue number 3, we see how he gets out of that, only for him to end up being attacked and then strangled by the civilians that he's actually trying to help, who are sort of vigilantes in their own right, who decided to actually take justice into their own hands when they believed the system had failed them. Now, Batman is probably going to be able to get out of this one too, but I honestly cannot wait to read how that happens. This story started off slow, but the last few issues have really just started to pick up for me, and I've really been enjoying them. Starting to really like Jace, and I feel like we still don't know a lot about him, but I'm just liking the mystery too of like trying to figure out more about him with his little hints. Number 5. Teen Titans Academy. In the Teen Titans comic, we appear to be at a very devastating point in superhero history, filled with flashbacks. This series takes us back to a happier time when the Teen Titans members acted as teachers at their very own academy that they had opened. In their present day, however, we see them taking on a great threat which emerged, destroying the academy years ago and killing many of their pupils, teachers, and friends in the process. At least I think it was years ago. I don't really know how long ago it was, so I'm kind of just guessing there. This is a pretty shocking and bleak future that just makes us wonder more about how exactly we're brought here using the magical superhero amulet known as the H-Dial. How did this great threat, how exactly did it get unleashed? Because like we see a bit of it, but still a little mysterious. Number 4. Bruce Wayne on a train. I just like that it rhymes. This was a reveal that happened near the end of Catwoman issue number 1. Yes, spoilers, spoilers. Reminder of that warning I mentioned before we started counting here, because this one was a nice little surprise that I found in Catwoman issue number 1, where we follow Selina on a very interesting train heist, on a train full of the magistrate's passengers / prisoners. They're prisoners.
that's what they are. Catwoman ends up freeing and teaming up with Automatopoeia, while an in-disguise Talia al Ghul ends up finding what appears to be Bruce Wayne. But is it really Bruce Wayne, or could it be an imposter or a clone? So many thoughts flew through my mind at this ending. Either way, a very delightfully surprising cliffhanger ending to that issue. But we'll have to wait for Catwoman 2 to find out more. Number 3, Black Lightning. Shocking in the literal sense of the word as well. Jefferson Pierce received a major upgrade in Future State, although it seems a bit unstable to start. It seems that somehow his body was transformed into what looks like pure black lightning, making him a more deadly and unstoppable force, one that can also utilize his energy to move through others or travel into objects. How did this happen? In the next Batman issue number 3, in the continuation of the Outsider story, we gotta learn a little bit more about that, though it still remains pretty mysterious. What we're told is that this transformation came from magic and was caused by Black Lightning fighting the wrong magician at the wrong time, but for the right reason. So that's all we know for now, but I honestly cannot wait to learn more. Super cool to see him this powerful. He reminds me of Dr. Manhattan a bit, like the whole look. I like it. Number 2, where's Barbara? I just love the full page reveal for this one. In the Batgirl story that was included in Future State, the next Batman issue number 2, we learn about a plot to try and save Batman, who Cassandra Cain was led to believe is actually locked up somewhere in the Magistrate's detention facility, potentially being held somewhere deep, deep underground, and being held prisoner there. Dun dun dun. However, at the end of the comic, it's revealed that while Cassandra was right about where the signal she was tracing was coming from and kind of leading her to, it turns out that it wasn't Batman who was kept there, but instead was none other than Barbara Gordon, aka Oracle, aka Batgirl herself. I like how I said that like it was a huge reveal, but from the name of this point and then my little bit of story, you're probably like, I know where this is going. Reveal. Number 1, the Four Horsemen. Probably one of the most shocking reveals has been that Future State seems to be actually building to something grander than all of its just neat, weird, and pretty little parts. In Teen Titans, we saw a glimpse of this coming together when it was revealed who were the main adversaries in Teen Titans issue number 2. Here we see the Four Horsemen actually all appearing to be somewhat recognizable characters. While some are more recognizable than others, I'm sure, depending on what you're reading, the fact that they have been featured or hinted at throughout this event, or line, whichever you prefer to call Future State, popping up in various different stories was pretty surprising and neat. In fact, it's said that the more Future State comics you read, the more hints you'll actually have towards the major overarching plot and what it's about and how all these stories kind of connect with one another.